Hi everyone, this is a video tutorial about tone and its connection with SOAPSTone and rhetorical analysis. So tone is the author's attitude toward the subject, and whenever I ask you in class for another word for tone, I'm really hoping you immediately say attitude because that's the word that kind of helps us understand tone. Now, this is not to be confused with pathos. So tone is the attitude that the author feels toward their subject. Pathos is an appeal that speakers use to help their audience feel a certain way in order to be persuasive. So, with pathos, we're trying to get the audience to feel something. With tone, it's our own feeling. Now, sometimes those can be related. Sometimes we're really happy and excited about something, and we want our audience to feel happy, excitement too, and we're using word choices that help make that happen. But sometimes we aren't doing that. Like sometimes a speaker might actually feel really angry about a subject and they might be trying to persuade their audience to take action on this subject, but they might be trying to make their audience feel sadness in response to the subject. So even though they're angry, they realize that sadness might be the thing that motivates or moves their audience more than anger. And so you can feel anger, you can try to make your audience feel sad. Okay. So pathos and tone are not always the same thing. Okay. The other thing I want to mention as far as soapstones goes, we identify the subject in the soapstone to try to help us identify the tone. Because sometimes an author's attitude kind of shifts throughout the speech, and they might be talking about a couple different things throughout the speech, and they might have different attitudes towards different things in their speech. But the overall tone of the passage is really going to be connected to the subject of the passage. So identifying that helps us. All right, so how do I identify the author's tone? Well, tone, we're a little bit familiar with interpreting tone by someone's voice. We have this phrase that adults like to use with children, don't speak to me in that tone. And we understand that. We get that. When my daughters are all sassy, I'm like, ooh, I can know their tone, right? But when we're limited to interpreting tone in a text, it becomes a lot harder because we don't have that voice helping us understand. So, with text and with speaking, also, we need to really carefully analyze the author's word choices and think about the attitude those choices imply. And the rest of this lesson is really going to be about really specific word choices and how those can really make clear an author's tone to us. Other things that contribute to an author's tone, and we'll see it in the example next, are different kinds of sentence structures, different kinds of figurative language, different kinds of repetition. So those rhetorical devices that we're currently using kind of impact that as well. All right, so let's look at an example here. This is from a speech we're going to look at it more fully, but it's called How Autism Freed Me to Be Myself by Rosie King. And in this speech, she's really trying to rethink the way that we all think about autism and how she learned to rethink about autism. And so she's really trying to use her tone to shift our way of thinking. Things that would normally be viewed in society with maybe a more negative tone, she's trying to help us see in a more positive tone. And so tone is really important to what she's saying. And in this paragraph, she says this. But if you think about it, what is normal? What does it mean? Imagine if that was the best compliment you ever received. Wow, you are really normal. But compliments are you are extraordinary or you step outside the box. It's you're amazing. So if people want to be these things, why are so many people striving to be normal? Why are people pouring their brilliant individual light into a mold? People are often afraid of variety, are so afraid of variety that they try and force everyone, even those who don't want to or can't, to become normal. Okay, and in this, we really have this contrasting tone. She's pretty negative about the idea of being normal here. And she's really positive about being outside the box, for being, she doesn't actually use the word, but she uses a bunch of words that kind of praise being abnormal. She's drawing this contrast in her tone. And she starts with a series of questions about being normal. And the questions themselves kind of show this negative questioning tone to the idea of being normal. And then she uses these other ideas, extraordinary, step outside the box, amazing, to show that being abnormal is actually something really great. And then she draws this contrast really fully here in this: why are people pouring their brilliant individual light into a mold? We don't view being human and being in a mold as being a good thing. And so she puts that down, and she uses this like figurative language of being in a mold to show how bad it is to be normal. And she uses this idea, this metaphor of the brilliant individual light to show how wonderful it is when people are free to be their own person and be an individual. Okay, so this is kind of how she builds this contrasting tone, and it's a really beautiful picture of how to be abnormal and it still be a really wonderful thing. She doesn't use the word abnormal because I think we have a negative view towards being abnormal, but she uses all these other images that we do have positive connections with to show how powerful and wonderful that is to her. All right, we'll stop there.